That's okay.
It can happen.
Hey, don't let it, good luck. Don't let the truth get in the way of good luck.
There you go.
All right, yeah, there
Just
now.
taking the door, just rounding for your personal belongings.
Leave the door open.
I was over doing the street hunt somewhere, selling it, and then the rains came.
What are you doing?
Yeah,
Good, they need it.
then the rain came, so I stopped. That's gonna be raining out all day tomorrow. Yeah, there's no speed ups on Ryan. Now you can park it up, let's put speed humps on Ryan. I've called the school board many times and they say, well, there's nothing we can do about it. Well, you know, I said, when they get me head on and everything, I said, I'll just sue you guys for everything you got.
Good evening and welcome to July. Welcome to the July 1st meeting of the Los Angeles Grove County Council. If we can have the roll call, please.
Mayor Brown,
Here.
Vice Mayor Gerald,
Here.
Councilman Goldman,
Here.
Councilman James,
Here.
Councilman Fox.
Here. If you would stand for the pledge, remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Heavenly Father, again, we thank you for the opportunity to serve the residents and landowners of Los Angeles Groves. We pray that this meeting will go well, give us civility, give us wisdom and guidance, and we thank you that we're not being hit by this hurricane, but we're also appreciative of the rain. We pray in your name. Amen. All right, if there are any additions to the agenda, if not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Your second? Okay, we have a motion by Jim, second by Ryan. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. Moving to the consent agenda. Entertain a motion?
I'll make that move.
Okay, Ryan makes a motion to accept the consent agenda. Okay, we have a second by Jim. Further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, that was the consent agenda with the addendum, correct? You got an addendum?
Yeah, Ryan, you're on. Yes. Okay, moving to public comments. I just want to let everybody know we've got a lot on the agenda tonight, so if we can keep them for 3 minutes, it will help. I got Keith Harris.
Thank you, sir.
This is a citizen's assessment. I'm Keith Harris, 2580 C Road.
And you come up to the podium where the speaker can pick up your information and keep.
Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you for your time. I'm Keith Harris, 2580 C Road. I've been questioning culverts in this town for several months now. And in February 10th, the Waxahachie Road Water Control District Board of Supervisors reviewed and approved an interlocal agreement with the following language. The parties agreed and acknowledged that eligible public roadway improvements include construction and reconstruction of roadways and drainage facilities, including but not limited to canal excavation, culvert replacement. My goodness, there's an agreement here that the town has entered executed and been filed with the court, with the clerk of the court, to make it a valid interlocal agreement, that the district's going to be funded $150,000 of gas tax money with regards in reference to state statute 336.025. The money's not to exceed $150,000. And Mr. Mayor, that statute allows for the funding of bridge maintenance. Now, I think this executed agreement should be stipulated by the town, as its citizens mandated, that all this gas tax money, this $150,000 going to the water district, should be stipulated for culvert replacement, for canal, roadway canal replacement. We've heard figures of $100,000. 4 months before that, it was only $70,000, but the water district seems to think it's $100,000. So there's a contractor in town, license number CGC 047246, will bill them tomorrow for $62,000, which is a lot different than $100,000 than what the water district is trying to scare us with. Water district has a contract with the town, $50 an hour. They have equipment, they have labor. You would think that the water district would replace these culverts themselves, but no, they subcontract everything out, which makes the price high. But we have an agreement, there is documentation, there is backup from the water district saying culvert replacement. So why are we having this discussion for all these months and people are saying that it's a responsibility of the town, of the property owner in the paper, when there's an agreement that was formed in February that says the water district is going to do culvert replacements? Good question. Maybe someone can answer that. Thank you.
Joe, Nostr, please. Read your writing, sorry.
Joe Hospital, Compton Road. You guys recently came down and we went on the roads, we got the road paved, now it's clean. 100% improvement. We just came here. You don't have 35 people showing up for it because you've done something good for them. You have me and Mr. Murphy that came to thank the board, people involved in it. Now it's came out fantastic, Frank. It's a prototype for the future because we've only done 3 roads. A lot of things you can learn from that road. The pavement looks fantastic. Are there problems? Absolutely. It's 100 times better? Yes. When we asked what we got, we did our own deal. Murphy, myself, we put 4 different culverts between the canals. We paid for our own culverts on the drainage side, not the main roads, that was paid for. Underneath the roads, so the drainage from south to north would happen. I'll just make 2 suggestions in the future for the future roads. In the different towns and villages, they have to support it. I don't know if we ever incorporated that. If you own the drainage ditch, because half the people in this room live on a drainage ditch, half the people live on the road, they don't keep that drainage clean, but you guys just came out and had this life all out for us. Can you incorporate something in the future that those people know, hey, it's been clean in the future? If it's not in writing, it's not going to be taken care of. But if you tell them, now you have to maintain it. We did it for free. We got the town paid for those canals to be clean. It is 100 times better to see the problem. If we're jumping out, Mr. Shuket, he took no money from us. He did clean with his excavator. Everything else was paid for, but if you, the first thing I would say is, now that you've done that, get a town ordinance going that. If you own that drainage, and someone drains into that drainage, get your names now, because I don't believe it's up to the board to have to maintain that the rest of your lives. It's their canal, they should keep it clean. That, the culverts on the main road, you replace those, that's what you pay for. Ours we pay, we pay for hours. Last thing is, something real simple, which doesn't affect the people on Compton Road. Right after you pave a road, that beautiful black, nobody ever came back and did any of the speed bumps in there. There's a lot of scrapes. We painted, Mr. Murphy got strips, it's all been painted, but in the future, for liability, not for us, we did it ourselves, but in the future, if those speed bumps get painted like the next day, something, even a cone next to them, otherwise you have somebody go over that on a brand new speed bump that we paid all that money for, liability might be there, but what you guys did out there was absolutely fantastic, and for the people on Compton Road, thank you.
Thank you. Harold Murphy.
Aaron Murphy, 12345 Compton Road. I can't add much to Joe's comments except to thank you, gentlemen, immensely for what you've done. There's no more flooding in the yards. The drainage is working, and the road is outstanding. Everything is working right. There's a lot of people that were going to come tonight, and we figured instead of looking this place up for people, we could speak for them. So I want to thank you. As far as the marking of the speed bumps, if you're going to do that, if you let me know, we'll go ahead and do it. But if you're not, I'll go ahead and do it. I'll make some signs. I have the facilities to do it, and I'll mark the pumps, and I'll take care of it. Just get to me and tell me, we aren't going to do it. We do it. I did it the last time we did it, and I went to DOT people I know, and I got the stripping and stuff, and we did it. So whichever going to be the easiest way to get it done, that really should be done. So other than that, it's perfect. And I thank you, and everybody else thanks you for what you've done.
Thank you. John Ryan?
John Ryan, 3508 A Road.
How are you, sir?
Just to get some facts straight, the language that was read regarding the interlocal agreement between the town and the district, that was to allow the use of gas tax funds for the public culverts that cross Okeechobee Boulevard. We spent $42,000 to clean and repair those from the effects of Isaac and other heavy rainfall, and also to deal with culverts at the corners of the canals where they meet one another and have to make a connection. The focus of having this interlocal agreement was to try and respond to the initial FEMA flood mapping, which classified virtually all the land in the district as a 1% flood hazard. And one of the ways we're trying to respond is to cooperate with the South Florida Water Management and other communities to validate that our canals are in the process of being restored to their original design water flow capacity. So we've got a continuous program of using equipment and fuel and manpower to do that, and we wanted to qualify those expenditures. I think one thing that is perhaps misunderstood is that it's been a long policy out here that the land on the west side of the canals is cheaper than land on the east side by virtue of the canal crossings that private landowners pay to get access to their property. I know we were originally looking for property in Rhodes. I think it was on E Road. We had a realtor explain this to us. So the people that are on the west side of the canals have already had some benefit, and the quid pro quo was that they're responsible for the culvert crossings or the span crossings that comply with the district specs, because the district is responsible to assure full water flow. But for access to their property, those bridge crossings are the responsibility of the landowners. And I think I mentioned in a previous
Only a
meeting.
3-minute time limit here? That's what you said? Are we past that?
Well, I'll wrap this up. The county made it clear to us that the culverts under Okeechobee Boulevard, even though they own the right of way, are the responsibility of the district for its public water flow, and that even though the county owns the road, they are not responsible for those culverts. So I think those facts need to be juxtaposed over the handout.
The agreement doesn't say that.
Moving on to presentations. Clement Clark and Michael Schuyler.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Town Council. My name is Michael Sklar from the County's Department of Economic Sustainability. I'm here tonight with my associate, Clement Clark, to provide some information to you in regard to the interlocal agreement that the county is requesting that we renew for a period that covers the years 2015 to 2017. As background, Palm Beach County receives funding under the Community Development Block Grant, Emergency Solutions Grant, and the Home Investment Partnership Grant Program from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Fund. For example, these funds can be used to provide services from social service agencies for programs that assist the elderly, the disabled, victims of domestic violence, and those families and individuals who are homeless or at risk of becoming homeless. The funds that I'm talking about are also used to assist eligible low and moderate income homeowners with the rehabilitation of their homes due to code violations. We also provide technical assistance to businesses throughout Palm Beach County. The funds can also be used to address slum or blight in the community. And in this regard, we also can address emerging community needs, such as debris removal after a hurricane. In order to receive funding from the county, the county must qualify as an urban county, which is considered to be a type designation. This requires that an urban county program jurisdiction be established, which includes the unincorporated areas of the county and all local municipalities choosing to participate through interlocal agreements. Each town that participates in the urban county program contributes to the overall grant provided to the county by HUD. So the more municipalities that participate in the program, the more funds come into Palm Beach County, which can then be used to assist residents of Palm Beach County. In 2011, the town signed an interlocal agreement with the county to participate in the urban county program. This agreement will expire next year. That is requiring the renewal of all agreements to cover the next 3-year period running from 2015 to 2017. This agreement will automatically renew at the end of the 3-year period, but only with the written consent of the town. Execution of the agreement will enable the county to continue to receive and utilize federal funds for the benefits of all residents in towns that partner with the county. I'm available for any questions that you may have.
Okay. Any questions by the council? Bob?
Just a couple. Is it, when landlords buy homes and stuff and rent them out with support from the government, from the county, is like up north, I see a bunch of HUD projects in Wellington. I was a firefighter out there, I've seen HUD projects where basically it was made up of landlords and they were renting the apartments and stuff out. Is this the same type program or does it not allow that?
You know, it's a different, I mean, landlords can purchase homes, you know, on their own, but if they want to utilize anything that we have our funds, they have to rent those properties to people at fair market rates. So they are strictly, so if you want to use, again, you want to use any of our funding for development, because under our home program, we do have a developer rental program. So, but again, somebody would have to come in and rent those properties at fair market.
Okay. Any other questions?
In the last 3 years, how much money has Tremblant actually grossed from this program?
Was it the town itself?
Or anyone within the town benefiting?
Okay, from my understanding, I don't think anybody, I don't think anybody has a fund under our program from the town of Waxahachie.
I have a house and it was a rehab program.
Okay, you do? Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
No.
Are you kidding me?
Okay.
Okay.
All right, but it does help the county pull in more money so they can help other areas and stuff.
Exactly.
Rob?
I had a question. From the town's perspective, do we give up anything or any of the existing rights, limitations that we impose?
No.
Is it something that when we sign this agreement, does it give the county rights to direct something to happen within our town that we have no say over?
Everything, we come to you. You don't come, okay, for example, if Tropical Storm Arthur had become Hurricane Arthur and moved this way, and we had received money from the federal government for disaster recovery. We come to you and say, what do you need? Do you need help with debris removal? Do you need drainage? Things like that. So you give up nothing.
As it relates to low-income housing, for example, is there any situations where the county can dictate to the town and say, if you want to be part of this agreement, you have to have so much in terms of low-income housing?
Because everything is based upon your zoning. If your zone, if you want low-income housing, that's your prerogative. It's not ours.
So you would say it's all pluses to the town and there's no minuses as you would see it? Or liability or limit? Okay.
All right. And I think that kind of answered my question. In other words, we're R5 applicant. Now, we've got some places where that they're grandfathered in on less than an acre, less than 2.5 acres, but that's my main concern. In other words, it wouldn't affect our zoning.
No, again, the developer came to us and said, I want to build in this town. They'd have to get your permission first. We just couldn't walk in and say, you know, oh, but the county's going to give me money. Because if you say no, we're also going to say no. They'll have to look someplace else.
Okay. Thank you very much.
There are a lot of various federal laws that we would become subject to that I wouldn't think that we would be agreeing to if we already would. And Mike also has an issue with this.
Okay. We're not going to deal with it. Were we going to deal with it tonight?
If it's on the agenda for later, it's up to you if you want to move it up and deal with it, but it's on item
Well, let's discuss.
9A.
Yeah, let's go to 9A, at least I thought. We've got another presentation. And, I mean, unless someone wants to move it up, I'll talk about that. Okay, thank you. All right. Sandra, Samandi?
Salon.
Samandi, okay.
Good evening, Mayor Browning and council members. Thank you for this opportunity to recruit for the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office Citizen Observer Patrol Unit. You do not currently have a unit here, and one of our members is patrolling your area. I'm asking tonight if your council can reach out to the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office Volunteer Division and request a unit, which means a new car. And I'm willing to give you one of mine that is currently in your unit as we speak. She actually lives off of A Road. And if you can help me get more people to drive that vehicle to patrol your area, it would be a great service and certainly a help to Lieutenant Holmes. There are several opportunities in the COP unit. It's not just driving around in a car and observing. There's a dispatch unit, there's a marine patrol unit, there's a mounted unit, there's a bike unit, dispatch, honor guard, administrative, etc. There's lots of opportunities for volunteers, and it's a very rewarding program. I've been in it since 2009. Started off, we had basically 2 members. We have 9 now, and that's including the one that you have here. I do have 5 others that are going through recruitment now, so those should be coming on board soon. It's very important that we get involved and help the Sheriff's Office because they cannot cover everything. And the acreage alone is 110 square miles. I'm not showing my others out here, but it's quite large. So if you can help us recruit, I do have some a poster here. If you have somewhere local that you can put that up for the residents to see. And I have some brochures here, also my business cards for anyone that's interested. And also, you have a CERT team, which is incredible. I've learned so much from your CERT team, and I've been very blessed to be included in some of their training. And I started the CERT team out in the acreage, and we're up to 30 members now. And that was part of my interaction with your CERT team, getting me motivated to get those motivated out in the acreage. So we actually have another class coming up. It's next Tuesday, July 8th. It'll be every Tuesday and Thursday for 4 weeks. Palm Beach County State College actually, or Palm Beach State College, sends an instructor to us if I can get 14 or more people. Right now I have about 22 people in the class. So there is still openings if anybody's interested. You would then, once you get certified, you can become part of the Loxahatchee Grove CERT team, which is the Community Emergency Response Team, if you're not familiar with that. And those are the guys that we're going to be relying on to help our fire rescue and our sheriff's office, because we'll be the ones that'll get to you first before they'll all ever get out here. And so it's very important the more people we have involved in that unit as well. And my last thing that I'd like to say is please come to the Acreage Green Market. I do that every Sunday. It's at Acreage Community Park, and you're really welcome. We'd love to have you guys be a part of that at any time. And we're always looking for people to get involved in the acreage and Loxahatchee Grove. So you're our neighbor, we're your neighbor, so I'd like to see us try to work together on all these things. So if I can get you guys to possibly agree to write some type of request to the Sheriff's Office Volunteer Unit, I can give you that information on who it will be addressed to, and then we can go from there. And I can help you get your unit started and get some people out here to start patrolling. And you already have somebody that's interested in the mountain or the Marine unit, so there you go. Actually, Lieutenant Combs is in this brochure. So this is from our Lieutenant Combs.
No, I said who, not who.
You saw this, didn't you?
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, we have communication, right? We want to follow her request to send a letter to the sheriff's office.
Sure. Do we need to get volunteers before we request a park? I mean, those are some of the things we're just need to find out.
Is it a letter or? Yeah, I'll do a letter.
Okay. Sounds good.
Like consensus to the
Yeah.
other?
All right.
We can use a vote for our canal.
David, thank you very much. All right, moving to committee reports. Elise Rice.
We had our meeting on June 30th, yesterday actually. June financials were approved 5-0. There were no reclassifications. The bank balance was $3.342 million. Through May the 31st, the general fund had received 67% of the annual revenue budget, 59% of the expense, over 67% of the year. Year-to-date revenue exceeded expense by $82,647. 2014-15 budget, which is what we spent most of our time on. The committee reviewed a copy of section 6-01, Streets and Highways, of the 2013 Florida Municipal Officials Manual prepared by the League of Cities. I brought copies for you tonight. This document summarizes Florida statutes related to streets and roads, funding and assessments. The committee asked me by a vote of 5-0 to read the following paragraph from page 4 of this document. I'm going to quote. It says, a municipal government should have an established policy in place regarding payment for initial street improvements and should consistently adhere to that policy. To have no such announced policy or to make exceptions to an announced policy is to open the door to accusations of favoritism or unequal treatment. Loxahatchee Grove does not have such a policy in a written council-approved. In the absence of such a policy, the committee does not believe we can recommend a meaningful, workable capital improvement plan. And for this reason, we did not recommend any specified funding for initial road improvements. This does not mean that we believe this funding should remain undesignated. Rather, we believe that these funds should be designated for the benefit of our community, best consistent with the uniform roads policy. We believe this is needed in order to ensure that all our residents can know what options are available for improving the roads. The committee recommends that you develop and approve this policy based on public input, community workshops, as well as applicable referendums. The policy should address the basis of assessments for affected property, as well as sources of funding, general revenues, grants, bonds, assessments, etc., while ensuring adherence to existing Florida statutes. We noted that funds for some capital items need to be increased to reflect current project estimates. We recommended increasing funding for the traffic light at Okeechobee and D Road to $290,000 based upon the latest project estimates we had. The committee continues to support infrastructure improvements such as trails, as we believe they will benefit many of our residents and enhance property values. We recommended increasing the cost for the equestrian crossing to $60,000 based on input from the Trails Committee. There may need to be other changes to the budget as the trail project moves forward. We also reiterated our recommendation to increase millage to 1.5 mils. This is based on expense increases, projected decreases in some revenue items, as well as the need for the general fund to continue generating a surplus to provide funding for future projects. Any questions?
All right, any questions, any council members?
I have a small administrative thing, please.
Okay.
Would you have us, this nice little graph we have at the beginning of our package,
Yes.
would you change this range so that we don't continue to put all the numbers in the first grid? We've got it to $100 million range, and none of the numbers in our budget go over 250,000, so
Oh,
we
so
never use it.
round it,
Yeah,
you're
if you
saying.
could change it, maybe
Yeah,
to
sure.
50,000, so it would make some meaning, and the numbers
We
and
can do
lines,
that.
the lines would make some distinction between all looking like the same size.
All right. And I have these handouts for you.
And I have one other item.
Okay, go ahead.
We had, line items were like 200% or some large number over our budget. If you correct that, it was, the contractual waste oversight. We have a budget of 7, with an actual 18K, and we have 257% of the budget.
Well, we'll need to do a budget amendment, for that, but I think the reasons for that have been brought to your attention by town manager.
Did they explain it to you?
Offset, well, it's been offset by some invoices that, it's been offset by reductions on the part of waste part of the vendor. I think there's $21,000 that have been, that the vendor has been fined, and this, this expense was incurred as a result of investigation work that needed to be done to achieve this fine. So we're actually $3,000 to the good on that. But, if you're not aware of it, then I think Mark can certainly make you aware.
I got it. We've got an offset someplace else. I think the problem I had, and we don't see the offset, but that's,
It's detailed in your package. It's at the bottom, it's a footnote. It's not a separate line, but it's in there as a footnote. Year to date.
okay.
Okay?
Yep.
All right.
All right, any other questions for Elise? Elise, thank you very much. Do we need a motion to accept that?
Make a motion to accept the finance committee's, May 2014.
Do we have a second? Second. Okay, motion by Jim, second by Ron. Further discussion by council. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. Moving to item 7A.
Mr. Mayor, members of the town council, this is second reading and public hearing on proposed ordinance 2014-04. Go ahead and read the title. An ordinance of the town council, the town of Waxahachie goes forward relating to the use of livestock waste within the town, amending the town's unified land development code by amending part 3 entitled supplemental regulations, article 50 entitled public nuisances by adding a new section 50-035 to be entitled use of livestock waste, providing for definitions, providing that the use of livestock waste is a public nuisance except as provided by this section, providing for registration permits, requirements, and limitations on delivery and use of livestock waste, providing for reporting and notice requirements, providing for revocation of permits and enforcement, providing for conflict, severability, codification, and effective date. Just a little bit of background, this has been going on for a while. Your first ordinance, I believe, was in 2010, it was amended in 2012, 2012, and that's ordinance 2012-03. And that ordinance, when it was adopted, applied to both haulers and property owners as far as the delivery of waste product. This council directed us, the staff, to go through and analyze the current regulations. We did that. We engaged, we reviewed the research, we spoke with authorities on the issue, which has been summarized before. And the town council has already adopted the ordinance that regulates the waste haulers, 2014-03. So that portion of the 2012 ordinance has been repealed. Anything in the 2012 ordinance dealing with the waste haulers has been repealed by your recent act in 2014. This is the ordinance that addresses the use of it by the property owners. This provides for some consistency in regulations. It distinguishes between self and commercial haulers in some of the regulations. It provides for the limitations on the time to deposit by commercial haulers only. It does not have that same regulation for self haulers. It also provides standards for where the product can be spread and used, and those were taken from a Best Neighbors guidelines that were developed through the Florida Department of Protection. Those are in here. So this passed on first reading. It is a land development regulation. We require 4 votes in order to pass under the charter. It does contain changes as reflected at first reading, which were comments that planning and zoning board is recommended by myself and so I'll turn it over to you to conduct a public hearing and make a decision on this ordinance.
Okay. All right, and it is a public.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Someone want to make a motion and we'll second and discussion?
I'll make a motion to accept the ordinance.
Okay, Chair makes a motion for a second.
Second.
Second by Ron. Discussion.
In the interest of time, I'll just make my brief objection. I object to this because I believe it overregulates agriculture and doesn't have adequate exemptions. As an example for this, seeing property, the owners of which spoke to me about this issue last year, told me how useful it was to their business. They raised bananas. They currently have a sign outside, 50 acres for sale. So as we do things which are seen as unfriendly to agriculture, business will react. So I think 50 acres of open space, pure bananas, no houses was a pretty good thing, but I guess 10 homes or whatever else they ask for, since they're located conveniently right up against 162nd, and probably going to want to try to pull the acres into sections. But those are my objections.
Okay. Any other council members?
Yeah. One of the things that Mike touched on is that we are trying to include, and we've accomplished that, I think, in this ordinance, the good neighbor guidelines. And my perspective on that is that we are looking here at an ordinance that takes into account both agricultural and non-agricultural side by side. And I think it tries to level the field a little bit between both those categories, so that if you are non-ag, you have some rights relative to distance from your property line that manure can be done, and the treatment of where treatment manure, but also where it's located relative to your property, water sources and water supplies and open farms. So I think there's a lot of good stuff in here that affords us the types of things I think that we need to look at in a proactive way. It's relatively current information. We would have not had a chance to include in our prior documents and certainly not in the use code. But I think it's, I look at it as something that treats everyone equally. It gives the residents and property owners, it gets them involved in addressing the problem we have. I really think it's a giant step in our own behalf if we face any kind of scrutiny from environmental agencies in the future, where at least we can point to something that they've written that we've adopted and trying to address issues that we have. I'd like not to spend a couple of years that we had spent on the first ordinance to try to get it to where it really is effective. And more or less get into this with that experience behind us and adopt something that would have an effect on the community. I don't believe anyone, if you ask them really in the community, would not be willing to do their part in terms of protecting our way of life, protecting our natural resource water. I don't see it as a burden per se. I mean, if you have to get a free permit, we can make it even easier than making it free, and all you have to do is contact the town management staff by sending out a letter, which I would say is a good idea, to explain a little bit about what's gone on as it relates to manure. I would suggest to you there's more than half the residents in this town don't have any idea that it's precluded, even those that have been involved in having faced the problem. So, if nothing else, we need something to inform them. I would include with that letter an application form that says you can get a free permit, and these are some of the guidelines. And all you have to do is send it back to us. And we also can address the second ordinance as a second piece, if you will, or attempt to address the water quality issues, not to mention the fly issues and the things that we've heard about that maybe not everybody has faced. I have. But we could get something back from the staff when it's, say within a couple of weeks, if that's maybe not the next meeting because it's more dedicated to budget, but in August, that we would just kind of peruse that would give us kind of a statement that we want. But I think the emphasis is on this is a partnership in the town, all residents, all owners in the town. And I think that we have a few pages through our land use code, which is only going to be a few. It's well worth it because it addresses an issue that we, as you know, haven't been spending many hours on. And it has a benefit, I think, to the entire town, and it's a current one. We did I believe, a shotgun approach to try to anticipate so many things that could come up and try to write code to address those. This was not in the sites at the time. We now, I think, come up with something that's comprehensive. I don't see the harms in it. And certainly if we get in a situation where there's an actual conflict with ag rights, that, ag rights were protected. So I think we just should pass it. And again, I think it's good for the town, and I think it's also something that would dovetail with something you've been kind of very personally involved with in terms of the news.
Okay. Anybody else on the council? All right, Virginia Standish.
Virginia Standish, 15410 North Road. Let me identify myself as the person who filed a manure waste complaint because the callers were coming in after 9 a.m. because manure was being put and not planted. Mr. Rocket, you do great in PR, but I really, again, please don't insult the residents by saying this is an equal thing and everybody would be willing to do this. I personally am insulted by this ordinance. Let's start with the fact that only manure affects our water. I'm sorry, I think it's nursery chemical runoff, and I think Dr. Lauda would have to testify to that also. But let's go through this document very shortly in my 3 minutes. You have micromanaged and overregulated what the state has already accounted for. Okay, you say this is fair and reasonable to require property owners on which livestock waste is to be deposited to obtain a permit. Again, we were after haulers. I think we're gonna have to ask all the nursery people to get permits for what they are talking about. That was page 2 of 12. Just, I know you like to take your notes there. The property on which, page 4 of 12. The property on which the livestock waste is to be deposited must be designated as agricultural. I am neither, okay? I am residential right now. If I want more than 10 loads of manure, I'm entitled to it, okay? Don't tell me that I can't bring manure in to bring up my soil to a certain standard, but the nursery people can do whatever they want to their soil. Okay, yes, they are regulated. They are selling their product. They are retail. That's wonderful. But as a resident, do not limit my rights in this country. Page 6 of 12. This is a doozy. The acceptance of a permit by the property owner shall provide consent for a town representative to inspect the property solely for the purposes of ensuring compliance with the terms of the permit. Only with permission of the landowner, sir. You may have a permit, but no one enters property without permission. Okay, and I know you would tell me, oh, it's implied that we follow that. Unfortunately, in this town, we can no longer count on things unless they are in writing. And again, micromanagement, overregulation, and I'm sure the attorney billed us beautifully for this. Item 9, as well as drawings or layouts of the property to verify that the livestock waste shall be deposited and used in compliance. Well, those drawings need to be to architectural standards. Please advise what blueprints will be necessary. Oh my God. Okay, page 7 of 12. Oh, but we can have manure from outside the state of Florida. Right here. That it originated from outside of the state of Florida may be deposited on property within the town. Again, focus was waste haulers bringing manure into the town. Page 7 of 12. 10 loads pursuant to the permit. Don't even know where you got your soil rights from, but you better go to the University of Florida. Okay, within 200 feet of any well, have you talked to the health department and asked them what their regulations are? Are you better than the health department? I think it's 80 feet. You know, this good neighbor policy, if you guys want to be Fort Lauderdale, if you want to be Minto, just come out and say so. Don't pretend that you're ag if you're not. Just say what you're doing. And finally, I think the beauty of this all, the friendly neighbor thing here, imprisonment not to exceed 60 days. Don't tell me you guys haven't just flown the coop on this and gotten a little power hungry. Thank you.
Laura Giordi.
Evening. 2834 Ebert. As Tom Goldson's appointment to the planning board, I guess you can imagine I'm standing in opposition to this. Although I would agree here, there's no reason, given the way this town has gone since your initial promises for incorporation, I see no point to really rail at it. But you really were aiming at the examples like the banana farm, and I think it's such a wide net that you really, I think you really got extreme on the issue. I spoke to a couple of experts at the Extension Service who really don't share your opinions and actually view fertilizer, that we use for our pots and stuff is actually more damaging. You don't really allow enough manure
to come in, even from your neighbors, to be useful, or to use it, you don't really have enough to be bona fide useful, and you don't allow it for people who are not bona fide, which, am I right, or do you allow it for non-bona fide? A little bit, I think, right? I think it meets probably some of their needs, but also if you were to ask I was sort of thinking, because I like using surveying and drawings to figure out what I'm doing. If you were to actually ask a survey guy, if I really, I mean, I don't like this huge book of ordinances that you guys are doing, but since that's the law, I like to comply. And I was trying to imagine what it would take for me to get my survey guy to comply with a drawing that would show me the area where I could actually drop it. And when I look at my own situations, it's amazingly complex, and the actual, it would look like a gerrymandered congressional district on my own property to try to figure out where to drop it. I did a couple of drawings on your setbacks once, and people were amazed at how much land you actually lost in setbacks. But if I were to present a drawing of what the practical on-the-ground consequences of this are, I think you would be amazed. I would have to go ask my neighbors how to, locate their wells, and in addition to my wells and the water sources. It would be really hard to deal with. So that's really it.
Thank you, Laura. Dina, Corey?
Hi, Nina Corning, 2834 E Road. This was like, we had a few bad apples in town, and we all knew we needed to do something about it. And what we have here is an ordinance to say, let's kill all apple trees in the entire United States. This is what this feels like. I mean, it is totally overboard, completely overboard. I am as much for protecting water quality as most of these people are in this room. And I understand we had people absolutely abuse it. We had certain properties owners abuse it, getting paid for loads during the season. We have time to fix this before the next season. We can fix this to be something better than this, let's hang everybody who gets a load of manure. I mean, it's like, I couldn't give my neighbor, a little bit of manure to go and grow their tomatoes. And I've grown fantastic tomatoes on this. Okay? I'd much rather want to use horse manure than use fertilizer. The grass, even for us horse owners, the grass, we are on so much sand, we need to spread our manure. I don't produce enough manure half the time for my property to substitute what I need on there. And with my horses grazing, I don't want to use fertilizer. Now, buffers, 50-foot setback. Okay, dumping the pile if somebody gets it, but then spreading it, you need to spread it there. What if you want to build, have your Eureka palm or whatever, other hedge growing there? Wouldn't you want to rather have that with horse manure fertilized than some other toxic chemical? It doesn't make sense. You've gone as far as to say people can be imprisoned for 60 days, up to 60 days. Then you go get attorneys, utilities, law enforcement, everything back. You are then have the catch-all phrase that if you were unconstitutional with this ordinance, that you can still apply the remainder of this ordinance. I mean, even this, to have this catch-all phrase in there tells you something is wrong. I understand what you're trying to do, but this is crazy. From consenting to any inspection to, well, we've got a typo in there, but that I'm less worried about. I mean, it's absolutely over the top. And then it doesn't even, and I don't think everybody realizes this, it doesn't often distinguish between the manure that we're spreading spreading. When I have manure out of my stable and I put it in a spreader and have it go around the property, there is no distinction in the language that this is not what you're talking about. I don't want to see this not only hurt everybody who's receiving a little bit of manure from their neighbor, I don't want this hurting the people who are just simply using their own manure to go fertilize their lawns. If this is over the top, please reconsider this.
John Ryan, 3508 A Road. Again, just a bit of balance. Nurseries are a target, but they are also a recognized agriculture activity. They are also licensed by the state. We have an annual license renewal, and we grant inspection rights for any records, for the records that we're required to maintain for herbicides and pesticides. My recollection is when we were putting in the commercial well and service on a nursery, South Florida Water Management made one of the evaluation factors the adoption of recognized nursery best management practices, which had to do with fertilizer usage and the entrapment of irrigation water before discharging it into the canal. We also had inspections. I can't remember whether it was by the Extension Service or by the Department of Agriculture, but nurseries are regulated. They have given rights to inspectors and certifiers to be present on the property. And, I think that when you're dealing with anything that could be a problem for water, as manure is, or bad practices are, we need to recognize that there are people that comply with the rules and people that don't comply with the rules. And that's the focus of the ordinance. And really, I think that is just a balancing question that the town needs to consider.
Okay, thank you, John. Tom McClendon?
Tom McClendon, D Road. Our town attorney asked for the Attorney General opinion a couple years ago, and specifically stated that our Unified Land Development Code was adopted pursuant to Chapter 163. Chapter 163 refers back to 380 for definitions. Specifically excludes agriculture as being development. Why are we putting agriculture stuff in our Unified Land Development Codes? There's court cases that say you can't regulate agriculture because it's not development in your Unified Land Development Code. And you're doing it again. All this is doing is helping two people. It's helping somebody that's a control freak, and it's helping his law firm. Because eventually a judge is going to tell you can't do it. And you guys are going to pay him a bunch of money to defend that, knowing that there's court cases out there that it's a losing proposition. I don't know why you're doing it. Thank you.
Keith Harris, 2580 C Road. Water quality is an important issue. We need to protect it. Once we lose it, we'll never get it back. State statute 163.3162 says you cannot regulate a bona fide farm operation. All that requires is to be zoned, agricultural classified by the property appraiser, and be enrolled, or rather to file a notice of intent to enroll in the best management practices of the Florida Department of Agriculture. Costs nothing to do it. Any property owner having zoning and the classification and enroll can bring in any manure from any place, any amount, and put it down. So all this has been a useless exercise to try to achieve something that we wish to achieve. That's to protect our water quality. Guys, let's try a little better to protect our water quality instead of passing useless policy like we have in the past. Thank you.
All right, we have an ordinance. Any other comments by council members?
May I ask Mike to take some notes if he can respond to any of the items that were raised? It seemed like they didn't seem to fit with my understanding of this ordinance is, but there were allegations made.
Well, I'm not,
opinions aside, or whatever, I'm not here advocating. This was more than set to prepare the direction in the council through our review of looking at an issue in two parts, haulers and property owners. Some of the provisions that were identified as objectionable, the permit, the right to inspect, are in your current ordinance 2012-03. So what I would say is, even if you don't pass this ordinance this evening, and if those were issues, we should look at that, because those exist, those would continue to exist, notwithstanding the passage of that. So point that out. This was placed in the nuisance section, which is the only place you have your codes codified, is within your ULPC. So that's the reason why it was selected to go through this process, was because it could be codified and online for folks to see it, but it's in a nuisance section. It's not really a zoning type ordinance. So, I mean, again, value the feedback of whatever the council's direction is. Will comply. But again, this was an attempt to address the concerns that were raised, I think, back in March, to do these ordinances with as much thoroughness and we can to try to attempt to address the issues. My time is up.
I know it's a minority opinion, but I would suggest that this be brought to the ULPC committee and reviewed, because there's a lot of public comment. I think it would be helpful so that the council can be seen as people who listen to the people and try to take that into account, or just pass it over all their objections. But I think that would be most unwise.
Okay, any other council members?
Well, a few things that were raised, if in fact they could be modified, if they look too stringent. The points I initially addressed, not some of the items that were raised, but they were more the global statement of trying to address an issue that we have. Trying to solicit the folks in the community to help with that. The no-fee permit was something that was drafted out of our original discussions about when we were doing initial bringing in of manure into the town. The fact that we have to include out-of-state manure being brought in is something that we have to abide by. It's not a choice on our part to open that door for that. Although if somebody wants to come all the way south from northern Florida or boated in, I would suspect that they're really not bringing in manure. I would check the load for something else. So they don't believe that that's a threat, and it's something that should be, there's clarification. We didn't do it because we had to, but we did because of interstate commerce.
That's correct.
Now, there's some areas of this that we can modify to make it more palatable, such as having 5 days to submit a report. As far as I'm concerned, we could submit a report monthly if that's what we're trying to do. I think the main thing was to provide some protections to those that don't have protections. And a residential site doesn't really, when it comes to manure, next to, say, for example, an ag site. I do believe we have the rights to follow or to reference best management practices or some other things relative to use of manure in the community. And I don't expect this to limit to any degree. Somebody like myself who wants a wheelbarrow full of manure, and I'm going next door, or a couple of neighbors, I've got a variety of choices close, and bring some in. I'll have a permit file, we'll do it once a year, and it says I'm going to use up to 20 loads, and up to 4 a month, and I don't know when. And that to me is enough. And if I actually use it, I send in a form. I can put it on, maybe we have it even online, which really, but I don't, there may be things that I'm hearing are to me, issues that don't really get at the guts of what we're trying to do out there. And I don't think a lot of residents that would see the benefit of this taking the time to come out because they didn't see it as, something that they had seen enough, and may not even be aware of it, because they don't know. So, if we want to send it to ULDC, or if we want to just as a council modify some of the areas tonight and pass it, then I'm in favor of that.
Okay. Anybody else?
I know this all started with the haulers from outside the town, and then we thought about it, and we wanted to also know where it was going. And then we started thinking about the neighbors, and then we started thinking about the water. I've mentioned it before in the past. I think, one, it's very difficult to enforce. And then two, I think I'm personally fine with just a free permit, just to know where it's going. And for the residents, our main focus were the dump trucks. And I'm not really concerned about the people who are trying to spread it on their lawn, and we were just trying to focus on the dump trucks and target the property owners who are abusing the ability to dump on their property. I do think it got a little too difficult. I think we should look at it a little more and try to make it easier for property owners and residents. Because I don't think the purpose was to make it more difficult, but really to stop the haulage and stop the abuse that's been happening.
I think we need to vote on it now. It sounds like it's gonna get voted down. We need to quit paying legal fees. We need to quit lingering on with this. We either vote it down or we vote for it. So let's do a vote and see which way it goes and leave it alone.
Okay.
I would say that if it loses, it's over, and you gotta start all from scratch. There's no new law versus having a chance to reform this.
One of my issues, and my problem has always been the rampant hauling from our neighbors to the south. During the season, the trucks, the amount that come in here, the people that are abusing it, that was my concern. I really don't have any problem with any generated Los Angeles roads, going anywhere in Los Angeles roads. And that's where I'm at. So if we could just do it with the haulers and say they cannot haul it from outside. If we're required by law to say, we have to include from out of state, and that's a requirement by the law. I mean, I kind of agree with Jim. I would have to worry about a load that came in like that. My concern is the outside haulers, and I want to stop them. I really don't care about any kind of permits or knowing where it goes or a survey of a property. They're putting it in their own property. If they want to stick it on their own well, they're just stupid. But it's up to them. I think the setbacks are important because then you're encroaching on your neighbor. But whatever you want to do with your own drinking water in your own house, I really don't. It doesn't bother me a lot. So I really would like to keep the part that says we will not have any haulers come in here. Allow the sheriff's department to enforce that and say nobody comes in from out of town.
You've already passed that ordinance.
We've already passed it.
Already passed that ordinance. This was the second half to deal just with the property.
All right.
Already passed.
This was the overreach.
Okay, then I agree with Ron. Let's go to a vote.
Mr. Mayor,
I have one more.
You would not benefit from those setbacks. You don't have those in the first ordinance, so you lose out.
Yeah. Well,
Maybe we have to take another pass at the ordinance that would say just setback issues.
I mean, that's the only thing that I believe in being a good neighbor.
Yeah.
And for somebody to pile their stuff on the property line is not being a good neighbor.
It happens all the time.
That's the only thing that I would include in that.
And we could direct Mike to go back and reword this. I think we can.
Well, what I think what you ought to do is decide what you want to do with what's before you.
Okay.
Because if it's going the way it sounds, and what you're going to have to then deal with is the 2012 ordinance that remains.
One simple page that everybody can understand is that pages and pages, books, surveys, permits, and all this crap.
If we can agree on sending it back to Mike's rework, and what Tom is saying, I hear on one page, I'm not sure if it's one page, but something that addresses the setback issues, which really is addressing the neighbor that is not bringing it in, but is affected by it being brought in from another property within the community. If we can direct them to redo that, is that something we have in front of us as an option, Mike, or to postpone this with the directions that we redo it and then vote on it later?
Yeah, I mean, that's always an option. It's always an option.
Would the change
but
be too substantial to?
This is a comprehensive ordinance. If it has a lot in there that the council doesn't want to consider, then my recommendation would be to, maybe we just maybe tell you, give you a report maybe at the next meeting, just what remains in 2012, and you can decide then whether you want to strike something. From the ordinance that exists, it would have been repealed by this, because you still have permit requirements from the 2012 ordinance that would remain. So, what I would recommend you do is act on this ordinance, make a decision as a council, and then you can give us, if you feel like giving direction tonight, you can. If you want us to put it on another agenda for you to give us direction while we give you a copy of this, so you can understand what remains after you pass the part, you can do that too.
Okay, would you be clear as to what the options you sent? We can postpone the action to vote.
You can prove it. You can deny it.
Right.
You can postpone it without a vote. There'll be a motion to continue. If you give a motion to continue, it really won't serve a service unless as a council you can give us specific direction about what you want us to do. If you deny it, then you can move on, or you can give us more direction tonight. Those are really where you're at.
Okay, but Ron,
My understanding is that we've stopped the bulk coming in to Loxahatchee. Understanding, that's right.
I guess.
it's already passed.
You've got the hauler one passed.
Okay, all right. Then my question, if we've got the hauler one passed, then let's vote this down. Let's turn it over to our ULDC committee, residents that live in Loxahatchee Road, and save ourselves $185 an hour. If they come back with a good plan,
I have nothing more to say.
All right, Joe Siciliano.
Joe Siciliano, 1530 B Road. I just want to say, I live here in Loxahatchee with a lot of other people who have ag, and you don't move next to an airport and then complain about the planes. I have a neighbor who drives around on his tractor fully geared up, spraying pesticides all over his plants. And I don't complain about that because I moved next door to a nurseryman. And he doesn't complain about my horses making poop because he lives next door to a person who has horses. I mean, it's just part of how it goes. Yeah, that's all I gotta say. You move next to an airport, you can't complain about the airport. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote?
Yes, roll call.
And a motion, second. I did.
You made it.
And a second.
Was,
Dave, one more.
No, I have a card.
okay. Yes, Dave Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council. First of all, I agree with the people that have agriculture. But the problem is, and hopefully, the trucks of manure coming from Wellington have been stopped. Because that's the crux of the whole matter. If we can stop the trucks, it's not a problem. Stop it.
Christine St. John, 43rd Road North. Mr. Rocket mentioned that a lot of people might not be here because they don't know. And I believe you're probably all familiar with the expression, the elephant in the room. There are people in town getting elephant poop from Lion Country Safari. And I don't believe legally, I don't believe elephants are livestock, so you might want to think about that if you're gonna go hauling people off to jail. The other thing is, when you talk about manure from out of state, I believe Palm Beach County is accepting garbage for their new incinerator or whatever magic potion they have to get rid of garbage. So there's garbage coming into our town, or our county. You can't really recycle garbage other than burn it, and what's that doing to the environment? Manure degenerates or rots or whatever, and it gives off good stuff. I'm for it, but I don't like the haulers either.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Councilman Rocket?
Yes.
Yes to approve or yes to deny?
Well, the motion was to
Yes,
approve.
motion to approve.
Was approved, okay. Councilman Liang?
Nay.
Mayor Browning?
No.
Vice Mayor Gerald?
Nay.
Councilman Dolson?
Nope.
The nay. All right, let's take a short break and we'll come back with administrative updates. Okay, let's get everybody's
Hey, Joe, how are you? Good to see you. Doing okay, how about you?
We got several items. Anybody see Ryan?
Frank, yell for Brian. Yeah. He's got to go on the other side of the building now.
All right, we're moving on to administrative update. Mark?
Thank you, Ron. The first item that I want to report about relates to Okeechobee Boulevard. Council directed the town manager to talk with county engineer George Webb relative to the ability of the town to take jurisdictional control of Okeechobee Boulevard and to indicate that the town was interested in creating roundabouts at both B and F roads, as was recommended to the town council at a joint meeting by the planning and zoning board and the RETAG committee. I was able to secure an appointment with Mr. Webb on June 16th, and I met him. I basically asked him 2 questions. The first question was, what was his opinion of the town obtaining or gaining jurisdictional control? And the second question was, what is the process the town has to go through? Very candidly, he indicated that he did not think recommending jurisdictional control for the town was something that he would be able to recommend, but he was open to it. And he did indicate that there really isn't a formal process in the county relative to these kinds of requests. So basically, he indicated a letter from the town, which could go to either him or County Administrator Weissman, would be sufficient enough to get the ball rolling. And he wasn't sure whether the process at that point, whether they would just take it to the county commission for a review or how they would address it, but they would then react and go forward. And so I indicated to him that I'd be bringing it back to council and getting direction, obviously, to go ahead and do that. A second part of the discussion was we were talking about the developments, and he indicated, or at least offered to me the opportunity to provide him with comments and conditions relative to the Minto development. And taking that into account, I decided to have our engineer take a look at conditions that the town could potentially recommend that would be beneficial to the town. So our engineering folks have drafted up a number of things that I can put in the letter to George Webb as conditions potentially to Minto that would make the town a benefactor if such were to occur. So I guess I'm asking council to reaffirm, number one, that you want me to write the letter to the county regarding the jurisdictional control relative to Okeechobee, and two, that you would like me to write the letter to George Webb indicating the town's conditions, concerns as it relates to Minto.
Okay. Discussion by council.
Regarding number one, I would say yes. Regarding number two, I'm not involved in it.
Everybody all right with number one? I think everybody's on board with number one. Number two, we need to know what those conditions, in other words, it's going to be hard. I guess I want to know what kind of conditions we can put on there, and if they're going to listen to it.
I would say they're more in line. I mean, I've had some discussions with the engineering. It's more like requests that we would like as a result of, if they are, if they're putting conditions on the development, if approval is what ultimately is going to happen there, then I'm trying to get whatever benefit I can to the town.
Like pay for our traffic light.
Like water, like sewer, like whatever we can get.
Well, water and sewer, so I can help us.
Well, it's an option. It's out there. We can ask for it. So all we can do is tell us no.
But I'd like to see them fix the traffic light.
If we send a letter relative to Minto, I would think it'd have to be starting off with our resolution, basically, that said we don't support the growth beyond what they've already approved. But with that growth, they need to do certain things. But my concern is that we'd be penning a letter that says, expand Okeechobee to 4 lanes. That's what the response, I think, reception would be on that. And I'm not in favor of anything that suggests that we're in favor of expanding to 4 lanes. That's my concern, because there's and I don't know, what does the engineer charge us for this opinion on Okeechobee?
When he's worked up to this point, I haven't got an invoice yet.
Do you know about what the charge is going to be? We just haven't worked out, we don't know what it's going to cost us.
And I think the other thing that's important is that we specify what we've already decided on, and that's the horse crossings with those signals, on those children. We don't want to lose that. We need that, so.
Well, again, I mean, I'm not gonna write the letter, obviously, until you looked at it, but what I'm indicating is, do you even want to entertain that? I think it's an opportunity for us. Again, it's not conditioned from the standpoint of us doing an analysis, I mean, the county doing that, staff's doing that, that's not our mission. I think what he's indicating is there's something the town is looking for from a conditional standpoint that we would request.
Well, we're gonna take this up maybe and kick it around, but I would say that any letter we send has to lead with, we don't support additional growth beyond what's already approved. We don't support widening from 2 lanes. And then if we want to list the things that make those coming around that are such as safety issues that they should pay for. But I'm just concerned you can't open it up and say, well, we like all these things, and we don't first mention the fact that we don't support beyond the 2,900 homes, for example, and that we don't support widening the road. That to me was the lead-in. I would hope the council would agree with it. Maybe we can talk about this next meeting, and we've had it first time we're hearing about it.
Well, my intention is if I give you me the go-ahead, I'm gonna bring a draft letter back. I'm not gonna just send a letter.
Well, I know, I'd like to know what it costs us from engineering firm.
Okay. Any other council members? Virginia Standish.
Virginia Standish, 15410 North Road. I think the best thing I learned in life is I don't know what I don't know. And we don't know what there is out there that we could ask. I think Mark has a great idea. I think you need to ask what's out there. You need to say, hey, what's available to our county? We gave away so much of what was Waxahachie Groves. We gave away Albertsons. We gave away the hospital. We gave away the Chamber of Commerce wing. And then all we hear about is as landowners, what we have to come up and pay for. We need to start asking, hey, if you're going to put this in there, what can you do for us? If they want to talk water and sewer lines, I'd love to hear how can we get it for free for us. Let's cry. Let's cry like Michelle Limon is crying because she's got her hand out. I want my hand in the cookie jar. If there's something, I don't want to know that we put our head in the sand and didn't ask for what we could get because us, the landowners, are going to have to pay for it. And I will give you an example. I have my experience with Palm Beach County. Small property in town. You think I'd have water and sewer at the same time, wouldn't you, gentlemen? Right near West Palm Beach Airport and everything. You don't ask for it and you don't stick to your guns. All I have right now is the water line. Because a commissioner decided, because his mother lived in the neighborhood, that he didn't want her to have the expense of the sewage. You need to ask for what you can get. And it behooves you to know how it will benefit the residents. Please do not stick your head in the sand. Thank you.
Well, I thought since the subject was brought up, and I have the new plans with me. I don't know if you guys two wanted to also or not, but.
Motion to receive and file.
Yep.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion to receive and file. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign.
Do you two want to also?
4-0 also.
Oh, you didn't vote, sorry.
This is just to receive and file anyway. You're going to use up most of your 3 minutes.
Well, long story short, make sure you don't have any conflicts with anybody who does any recommendations for you as they do in the past. You can work with them, et cetera, et cetera. And be careful when you make any requests that you don't use it as a negotiation. It is not a negotiation. You don't accept a spoon of honey for the plate. Okay? You don't. And that has to be understood. That's pretty much all I have to say. And then, with all the new numbers that they're giving, I love the fact that the bioswales are green space.
Thank you, Nita. Dennis Lip.
far as Okeechobee goes, we discussed this at the planning zoning along with the retag. And I think our key argument with the county is to maintain the rural character of our town. Because when Okeechobee turned Middle Road into Okeechobee, the rural character of our town changed forever. And with anything that goes through our rural town is also going to change it immensely, including Fort Lane. So I think that our point with George Webb, number one, George Webb does not want the town of Oak Road. George Webb wants to have that as a thoroughfare, hooking up eventually at 20 Mile Bend to bring in trucks and everything else through Palm Beach. I'm fairly certain we can elicit the help of Royal Palm Beach in this argument because everything that flows through Oxhatchie's got to flow through them, and they've already got enough traffic. So I think that is our key issue, and working with George Webb is not going to get you anywhere. George and Weissman and all those folks are going to be gone a year from now. And I think we have probably that much time, but we need to start working now with the county administrator, with the current seated county commissioners to keep us going. And everybody needs to lobby them wholeheartedly, even whether it's from the community. Because I think we have a lot more leverage by sticking to maintaining the rural character of our community as opposed to we don't want anybody coming through our town. That's not going to float. Right. But maintaining the rural character is exactly what we need to do and exactly what we can get accomplished. As far as the other thing, going off the Minto and asking for favors, I agree with Dina. You know, a teaspoon of honey makes the medicine go down. And the thing is once you get that medicine down, you're going to live with it. So I think that's the point we need to maintain. Thank you.
Thank you. So we said yes to the first part, that you're going to request. What do you think on the second?
In keeping with not putting our head in the sand as suggested we might be doing, that's why I would lead any letter and open it with what we've already said as council and what we have, the position we have is not changing. It's not like, we'll offer these up if you give us something in return. No. And the question I have is, at what price do we get something? And the biggest price that I think we're going to pay right up front, no matter what you get, is in fact our rural character, because down the tubes, with the old manure that we used to have, same place. So, if you want to draft a letter, you were there, that gives us an approach, but I would want to see the lead in basically says, we're not in favor of this, or what we do support is no more than, which is what our ordinance, our resolution said. And that we make sure we use the wording, and Dennis has reminded us that it's a great wording, is that Okeechobee has to remain 2 lanes to retain our rural characteristics, our rural nature, and anything else is really a destruction to what really we have in terms of Loxahatchee Road. We ought to separate the town into Loxahatchee North and Loxahatchee South roads and have 2 different governments. And we can split up the 2 different agreements with water control district because you no longer will have the same.
Okay, Ken Johnson.
Mr. Mayor and council members, Ken Johnson, Collecting Canal. I concur with keeping Okeechobee 2 lanes. We don't need 4 lanes. We do not need to divide this community any more than it's been divided already. The main thing that I see is we need traffic control on that road. I mean, the speeders on that road aren't the local people here. Watch them. They come off of Summerall Pratt Whitney Road. They take the shortcut on Okeechobee. You can go 40, 45 miles an hour. They'll pass you on a double line. They will do anything to get ahead of you to get down the road. We've got to control, how many speeding tickets have been issued on Okeechobee? I'd like to know. I'd like to know in dollars how many speeding tickets have been issued. I don't know the answer to that, but I'd like to find out. Because we've got to control traffic on that road. And we've got to lower the speed limit if we possibly can. We've got to put in a roundabout. We've got to put in a stoplight. We've got to make anything that's happening in Minto be diverted to Southern. And let them ride on 6 lanes, not on that road. Thank you.
Thank you.
When you brought up the idea of hiring engineers, it occurred to me that when they do their traffic studies, they do them as they come in. And I don't know if you've seen any of the maps that have been floating around showing all the developments that are beginning to ring around us, including the work center, which was recently announced. But they don't do those traffic studies, and they don't, if they're over 5 miles apart, they don't aggregate. That only happens at the Metropolitan Planning Organization level. So it's kind of odd. I mean, you wouldn't see that in the stock market or any other type of, the kind of analysis, comprehensive analysis doesn't really occur. And I don't know if you have a representative that goes to MTO or whether you could have one, so you could be part of it now. But anyway, if you're starting to hire professionals, maybe it would be a good idea to bring in Avenir and potential GL and some of the other factors. If you're already going to start paying for certain things, it would certainly be helpful because you're not going to be able to public records it for a while.
Okay. Thank you, Lord. All right.
Just on a general point, not related to Minto. I think that this is really something that the Washington Communities Council could focus on in the midst of what they're doing. I know that various people feel that a coordinated approach to all the Western development and a sensible road project. Right. You can't, at a point in which we're about to become the third largest state in the union, it is putting your head in the sand to think that unless we do some proactive things, such as limiting the traffic on Okeechobee by making it 2-lane on our traffic calming and some other things that we do, considering even maybe halfway along the main roads, put a stop sign to bring people to a stop, pick a crossroad, put a 4-way stop there where you can stop the traffic, do some traffic calming things, or put some roundabouts in, do something. If we don't do that and do it in coordination, as Dennis mentioned with Royal Palm Beach and with Wellington, then we're just piecemealing it. We're not going to get there. The county's going to give it away each time. And as we're arranged right now, and many people see it politically, you've got with the 7 districts, the guy who lives in the district that's getting the development rages against it, and the other 4 or 5 give them what they want. That's the game, and it's how they play. They ask for X and they take Y, but they only had D to start with, but hey, that's how the development game is played, and that's what they all do. I mean, when Ron and I went to the FDOT, the very engineer for the FDOT said, yeah, we always ask for more, hoping that we'll get something. He gave away the game. He says, oh, well, I'm not supposed to say that, but I'm working for the state right now, so I can't. So I do think that we need that coordination with the Western Communities Council. I know Jim's working with that, and hopefully with the other representatives, they can come up with a coordinated plan. And we don't just all try to build a wall around our own community, because we have to go. I mean, you think, how are you going to get out of here unless you drive to Southern Boulevard? If you don't drive to Royal Palm, you don't drive to Wellington, then you got to take Southern Boulevard all the way down 95. And I hope you're going there. We're interconnected. We have to live together, but we need to do it, and we need to also understand
that all y'all talk about GL and all these things, I mean, hasn't anyone looked at all that sugarcane? I grew up in Dade County, I saw what they did to Homestead. I mean, I saw what they did to the Redlands, I saw what they did to Kendall. When I was a little kid, there was thousands upon thousands of acres of beans that are now house upon house upon house upon house. 8 to the acre, not a problem, and they found people to fill them, and they'll do it here too. And, you know, the idea, I used to dove hunt when I was 16 years old, Glades Road and 441. Go there now and imagine you could dove hunt. If you pull out a gun, they shoot you down right there. You know? But in those days, there was nobody and nothing. There was eggplant. So things can change. They are changing. It takes a lot more than us. You know, poor Rosa ain't there to do it for us anymore. Somebody needs to get up there and say, you know, we need growth management. At the same time, the county's looking, how can we hook up with Broward and Dade to make it more like that, to make it more progressive. Well, progressive is not y'all's lifestyle.
Right.
So we need to understand that, and we need to look for our representatives not only here within the town, but outside the town, to understand where we're coming from. Or we're just gonna be absorbed like all those other places, like Naranja and all the places I can name for you, and Ogis and other places. Ogis, if you wanna know, is where Aventura is in Dade County. Go there and, well, excuse me, it's not Dade County, it's Miami-Dade County now. But go there and look for Ogis. You won't find it except a little old post office on the corner and thousands upon thousands of homes. Which when I was a kid, was country, was cows, it was just like this. So,
Okay, so Mark, you're gonna, you heard some of these ideas on the road. Let's, I don't know, do we need the engineer working on it? But, you know.
Engineer is giving you the basics, and I have to try to put it together, if
All right.
that's what you want.
All right, everybody all right with that?
yeah, come back with the draft
Yeah.
next month.
Okay. All right. Is that all your?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get that long. Seems like my report got co-opted. Okay, the next item is the Intergovernmental Coordination Committee meeting. Was held on June 26th. Consisted of Steve Yowie, Councilman Tom Bolsonaro, Supervisor Frank Shiola, and myself. The agenda consisted of some discussion relative to drainage improvements as it relates to policies and how both the district and the town should address drainage improvements. And there was also a discussion of fill that was removed from culverts on Okeechobee Boulevard. I guess there was an ethics issue, and Steve Yowie responded to that. He's waiting for a response from the Ethics Commission. We also talked about the local bill discussion and a number of other items. Our next meeting will be July 25th at 3 p.m. on Friday with the same 4 individuals. So, are there any questions about the ideas here?
Right.
Yeah, could you expound a little bit on the interlocal with the district and the horse trails, just for people's edification?
Well, there was a discussion relative to the horse trails and how that's going to come about. And I think that there was some further discussion in that regard relative to the loan. And Steve Yowie indicated to the group that he's going to go ahead and get the details on that, because we've not seen that, to see what we can do in terms of the improvements. Am I hitting what you wanted, or?
No, I was referring to the trail system and the interlocal agreement relative to maintenance of the trails. So
Right,
if we
what
can get that
specifically?
established. Just, I guess I'll just do it.
Okay, yeah, I'm not sure you're.
We discussed that Steve and Steve and Mark will be working on preparing an interlocal agreement that would cover the maintenance of the trails, because the Trails Committee had discussed the need for more often cutting than twice a year. And we discussed how, for drainage purposes, maybe the twice a year works, but for the horse purposes, they need it more often, and that's what's going to be worked out between and including the cost for what that would be, so that we could then, once it's completed, bring that back to this board and to the water board, so that we can make sure we're able to open up the horse trail. Because it was extremely important to those at the meeting that they see some progress.
And thank you for that, Councilman. I guess that begs a question, but the rest of the board gave us moving forward, now that the IUC has discussed that and kind of approved it.
Okay. Ron?
While you're discussing horse trails, there's a section between D Road and C Road that's got that ditch that would open up quite a bit of a trail. Now, there's no reason why that shouldn't have been done a year ago. Put a culvert in, close it in so that people can ride their horses on the south side of Clayton Canal. There's no reason for dragging your feet on that.
And we discussed that, and actually Frank told me that he thought he could get that accomplished fairly rapidly. He was given the go-ahead to do that, so I really wish we could move forward on this.
Okay. Can we get a consensus on that then?
It is something we budgeted for this year.
Yeah, we're all right. We've been wanting to get that opened up for a long time. Everybody all right with that?
And the last item, Mayor,
Yes, I want to see you riding up. You're going to be there when we cut the ribbon.
Mayor, just a reminder, relative to formalizing your appointment of Laura Danowski. She actually participated, she did a very good job, but just so we can do it.
So do we need a vote by the council?
No, we just announced.
You just announced it.
Yes. Okay.
If I could, just one more thing about the road committee. The last meeting we had was when the first week had 5 people in quite a while. It was extremely productive. Everybody was right on the same page, and, you know, I think it's a very positive committee at this point, so.
Good deal. Sounds great. All right, moving to 9, old business. Dave?
I had a question. Do we confirm our meeting on the budget? Is that for administrative update, or we wait until we get the...
We'll do it on the front when we get it.
Okay, 9A.
9A is the consideration of the agreement that we talked about earlier relative to the urban county addiction community on block grant, and we had the presentation a little bit earlier, so it's for your action.
Mike?
I just have one question. Maybe Lieutenant Holmes can assist on this item. There's a representation in this agreement that the town has adopted as enforcing a policy prohibiting the use of excessive force by law enforcement agencies within its jurisdiction against any individuals engaged in nonviolent civil rights demonstrations. And also, the municipality has adopted and is enforcing a policy of enforcing applicable state and local laws against physically jarring entrance to or exit from a facility or location which is the subject of such nonviolent civil rights demonstrations within jurisdictions. So, the town uses the PDSO for our law enforcement services, and with that contract would come them and their obligation to act in accordance with their general orders or their policies. And so maybe, hopefully, we'll be able to confirm this evening that they have such policies, and if they don't, that may be something that we might need to confirm before we actually execute this. If you approve it tonight, we could hold the abeyance and execution. So I did talk with the county attorney this afternoon, and they suggested that if that is indeed the case, and we are using PDSO, and they should have these policies, we would just need to go through the steps of confirming it. I don't know it's a big deal, but it's really one of the few items in here that says that we've actually done something and are doing something. So we want to make sure that we have it covered, that's all. So I don't know if you're able to provide that information, or you need to get it and bring it back. I hate to put you on the spot, but that was my...
I can tell you that the Palm County Sheriff's Office does need on this policy.
Okay,
I
so...
do not have it with me, but if you want to call,
No, if you're on the record that the PDSO has those policies, and they're by contract or law enforcement agencies, those are the ones that we're adopting and we're enforcing through PDSO. So that's enough on the record to address that issue.
Are there any red flags on this thing at all?
It's the same agreement you did in 2011. It's standard. I talked with the county attorney. It's the agreement they are required to pass on to the federal government. There is references to code of, like federal regs, but those have to do with what the county has to do to pass on the money to the town. There are representations that will take actions to assure compliance with the county certification required by Title I and Civil Rights Act. In other words, we're not violating any of these federal statutes, which to my knowledge, we wouldn't intend to anyway. So as far as from a legal perspective, there's no red flags for it. It's more of a policy issue for you all, whether you want to engage in this relationship, which was described earlier this evening.
All right. Anyone want to make a motion to renew this?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Ryan's made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ron. Further discussion by council?
Any comment?
I've got one. Go by council comments, anybody? Ron?
I'd rather hear John first.
Okay, John.
John Ryan, 3508 A Road. The presentation was positive, Pablo. I do think there are some things of concern in this. It's almost like we're turning over part of our home rule to the county's benefit, both in their consolidated plan and in whatever they want to do to comply with Section 8 low-income housing and other assisted housing activities. Specifically, the sixth whereas, paragraph 6, and especially paragraph 7 toward the end, where the municipality agrees that the county is hereby permitted to undertake or assist in undertaking essential community development and housing assistance activities within the municipality's jurisdiction. I mean, if the county is true to the presentation they made, I think we ought to make sure that we're not, without our concurrence, turning over low-income housing programs to the county to satisfy their requirements. I know when we became a town, the incorporation committee focused on the fact that we had enough small lots and older housing that we were not burdened by a separate charter requirement to comply with low-income housing because we could justify we already had it in place. And I just don't want to be a dumping ground for low-income housing that the county needs to have by this agreement. And I think their presentation was that nothing would happen without our concurrence. So let's just make sure of that.
Okay. Mike, any thoughts?
Well, on that paragraph 7, it talks about the municipality assisting and cooperating in the preparation of the consolidated plan. So whatever is in that, and then we're going to agree to abide by it. So we want to see that table to help develop this plan, the contract with that seat to cooperate and assist. So if there's anything in that plan that we want addressed, we have the opportunity through this to do it.
Just no section 8.
Well, again, we have, that's all I deal with fair housing and all that type of thing. And really, again, this is, as they described it, my experience is that these types of relationships is necessary in order for us to have the ability to receive these funds, should we ever want to request them or could benefit from them. And it's a federal pass down.
Yeah.
They said that the money doesn't come directly to the town, right? It just goes to various people. So it doesn't seem to me like we'll know anything about anything. And they couldn't really identify anybody during the time that it's been a town that's received any benefit of it. So at the time that dubious benefit, we're agreeing to 9 federal laws that we wouldn't otherwise be subject to. And I know Mike hasn't reviewed those to see all the ramifications and things that are there. I know that one set of FEMA regs that I read about floodplains was enough to put us all out of business, the whole thing out of business. So not knowing what those hundreds upon hundreds of federal pages say, I cannot support this.
Ron?
And I can support it. We got a young lady here that's already reaped the benefits of it. Now, what's a shame is we had it for 3 years, and as far as we know, only one person in Loxahatchee Road got benefits out of it. 2. Okay, but what I'm getting at is these 2 people that got the benefits these last 3 years, hopefully, and one of them seems to be getting involved in the town and stuff, hopefully they can find other people there's a lot of people I know in Loxahatchee that could reap some benefits from this. Now, if this contract's good for 3 years, I definitely don't see a lot of damage in 3 years. I would hope we could see a lot of positive things come out of this in 3 years. And if we're dissatisfied in 3 years, then we don't have to renew it next time. So I say we move with it and see what we can do for the residents of Loxahatchee in the next 3 years by getting involved. Jim?
Mike, to the issues that Tom raised on federal statutes, I mean, I would presume it would take a long time for you to look through what may be coming as part of this umbrella. Do we have a date we have to sign this by? Mike?
Well, you know, according to the letter, they wanted us to do it by June 20th, and Mark's memo indicated the county had given us to July 25th.
Do you think we can put this off and give us any kind of a comfort level? Because I'm concerned with issues that Tom raised. I've tried to touch on them before. As to what else are we subjecting ourselves to? And as John labeled the presentation, wasn't going to bring up anything that was along the lines of what we might lose or be subject to. I would like to know more about that too, if there's any other things that we don't know about that we could be subject to. And if we put it off until the next meeting, if we could possibly add a little bit to the next meeting that we have. Hopefully we can just limit it to 5 or 10 minutes, but at least get some more information before we decide.
Go ahead, table it till the next meeting. Wait a motion.
Okay, motion that we continue this item until our next meeting.
Can we do that, Mike?
Well, you would have to put it on for your second meeting in July.
Yes.
And then I guess the question that I have.
And don't forget that's your budget meeting, you didn't want to add anything to that. I know, but we have something that, had we gotten this a month ago, we would have been able to put it off a month and get more information, so we're kind of at the end.
I think I could probably get some clarification on what they call with the county attorney and go through it and understand what the, like, for example, I think the paragraph that's grabbed everybody's attention is paragraph 11, which lists all the different federal statutes. But really what it is we're agreeing to assure compliance with the certification. So like, let's see what the certification says. You know, that they're, we know, all these different federal acts could be bulk voluminous. And to have me give you a treatise on all that, probably not the most productive use of time and money, but to talk to the county attorney and get I could have a conversation with them and get some better understanding about the specific terms that list as federal statutes and what it means to the town. I could at least bring that back to you on that.
My thought is we've been under this for 3 years, it hasn't hurt us. It allowed the county to get more HUD money from the federal government, than they probably utilized it someplace else in the county. There have been a couple of recipients, but we'll see what, let's see if we can put it back to the other meeting. I've got one, Phyllis.
Phyllis Amelia, 359 West D Road. Eunice Banks off Temple, right across from Tracy and them. She got a house. It was a rehab. Her house was in disrepair. And she qualified, and that's how I found out about it. I got hit by a drunk driver 3 years after I bought my home. Okay? And because my income changed, I couldn't make repairs to my home, and I bought a house that was built in 1925. It had a new roof, but it had other issues, okay? I qualified for that program. Now, there's a family out here, I'm not going to say, but I have been trying for 2 years to get them in this program. Okay, they're low income, they had the loss of a child, and they really need some help. They're not first-time home buyers. They bought the land, so they're stuck with it. They didn't qualify for the first-time home buyers. So this could be a very useful tool for people, elders, people that get in a situation where their income changes, and I think we need to look into it.
Okay, thank you. All right, so do we need to vote on?
Well, So the motion, you have, was there a motion already?
Yeah, we had a motion.
A motion to approve, so.
Okay, we've
we
got a
vote
motion
on
to
that
approve.
or to
So
rescind.
I want to go back to the one that made that motion. And was that you, right? Okay. And are you all right to table it, or can you?
Yeah, I'm trying to get it. As long as we have it.
Are you continuing it, or is it, is there wording we supposed to be careful, or table, okay?
Well, you're,
Postponing,
I understand the direction is to postpone this to your July, whatever meeting you set later on for your budget.
And Ron, need a second? All right, so you're all right with that?
Yeah, we can finally make a decision on 18. So 18.
Well, you guys have to talk about that.
All right. They've changed the motion. Do we need to vote on that?
Yeah, motion postpone, yeah.
Okay, we have a motion postpone, second postpone. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0. All right, moving to 9B, the gas tax map.
Thank you, Your Honor. As you know, in March and April, we talked about the gas tax. One of the roadways that we had talked about was 43rd Road North. There was no final decision made about that. I was contacted by Ms. Christine St. John, who had asked that this item be put back on for deliberation by town council. So, we provided all the information. We do have a map there for your aid that was put in place. That kind of shows on 43rd the status. The red is folks looking to remove from the gas tax. The green is remain on the gas tax or keep it as a public road. The oranges are not applicable. And one property we have there is a renter. So this is just being brought back for your deliberation to see what town council wants to do with this roadway from a policy standpoint.
It is on the gas tax map.
That's
So to take an action of the council to remove it. In the absence of any action by the council, it's going to stay. Based on your listing it and whatnot.
Question about the map. The yellow line only goes 4 lots in. Is there a reason for that?
So those properties were taken off last year, is my recollection. Correct? Yeah.
The 2 green ones that say they want to be on the gas tax map are taken off?
That's where they've got that gate.
Yeah, that's the Jim Berkeley, I believe.
And so the 2 green properties are behind the gate, is that my understanding? When I look at the map,
Can I
the yellow
clarify?
stuff, yeah, please. I want to
Can I
understand.
clarify?
You can,
Clarify what the map says?
you can clarify the map. Yeah, the
That's what
actual
I'm limiting
discussion,
my comment.
much like what.
The yellow line should continue further west.
Yeah, the gate was,
The
where
gate
the
is
oranges are, or,
where the
yeah,
orange-
that's what I thought too.
Make an analysis.
Okay, yeah, I have
Can't hear
to
you.
lose myself from voting on any decision council's gonna make. But I can clarify on that.
Okay. Anybody else? Good.
Are we
Talking about the map.
You live on the road, Mr. Rock, right? And we-
Talking about, yeah, live on the, talking text me. Go ahead.
Relative to the map, I'm just trying to, and I know this is not, and I don't know what actually is the basis for somebody being whatever color they are on this map. But I don't even know where the gate is, right, number one. And number two, which Jim's told us. And then it seems to be that there's 4 properties that say no and 6 that say yes in an unofficial survey. And then the 2 that are behind it, by the gate, they've been taken off. So I don't know if they continue to vote on going forward, or since they're no longer on where, what their issue is, if in fact this is determined by local vote, which, I don't know. I think the issue is one of opt-in or opt-out, is really the simple point of this whole thing, which is, do people have to opt into the gas tax to be a town road, or do they have to, since we said they are a town road, opt out? To me, I don't really know the answer to that, but it seems like we have some contention on the road. And it's a hard one, because my personal thought was that, people ought to opt in and sign the road over as Compton or Sullivan. That is what I've always said relative to the gas tax. I think that's where I would come down on it relative to the entire thing, and I've said that before. More than that, if we took up that policy, it would require a lot of votes throughout the whole town. But then again, if nobody complains, it's the whole thing of, do we take it all apart to build it all back up again, or do we just deal with the issues? In this particular one, it's a contentious thing. I know that this has been back and forth. I've heard about this for 4 or 5 years. The real issue, I guess, is one of whose land is it? If the people own the land, they haven't signed it over to the town. They're saying, I didn't sign it over to you. I don't want you to be on there. I do not want gas tax. Why are we shoving it down their throat? I understand that other people on that road, by the same exact token, feel like they want that, and maybe they would sign over it. But as far as any improvements relative to the Brown, Compton, Marcella, we were able to get almost unanimity from the people signing over on all those roads. Here, it doesn't look like as unanimous, and it seems a little bit contentious. I hate to be in a position of being a judge.
Yeah, all right. Anybody else want to address this? All right, Ron?
How many of you received this and read it? From Pearl. All right, a little bit of history about this road. 10 years ago or whatever, about $15,000 was put on that road to bring it up to grade so people could get out their property without flooding. One reason was because this resident here that submitted this letter, and I want to receive it and file it from Pearl Roberts, was her husband had a heart condition. And they called for fire rescue. Fire rescue had a hard time getting there. So the county commission called that road up with good road rock material during hurricane season when people said it couldn't be done. After that, we told them, I was on the water control board then, we told them that if they wanted that road courtesy grade, then they had to get up a petition. And our policy was that 51% of the people that lived on the street had to sign that petition for us to do a courtesy grade. So September 26, 2005, they had over 51% of the people sign the petition, and they were awarded courtesy grade. Now, since 2005, we've graded the road. Since we've been a town, we put fill rock on that road. In other words, it has been maintained by the Water Control District, and it has been maintained by the town. Now, I'm a firm believer that if 51% of the people on that road say they don't want it, they don't want us to stick our nose in their business, maintain their road for them, and then we do like we did the other ones on the gas tax map. We take it off our map and give it back to the people. But I haven't seen 51% of the people petition this town, this council, to take it off the gas tax maps. So that's where I stand on that. And there's a nice long letter here. I'm not a good reader, so I'm not going to read it, but it will be received and filed. The other problem I had is when a council member has to abstain in a situation like this. Now, I hope we've checked that out with the OIG or the Commission on Ethics, because this affects more than just himself. I could see him abstaining if it only benefited him and the resident that was wanting to take it off the gas maps. But it benefits more than just him. So by law, he has to abstain.
I think you can probably refer to the councilman, but I think he has contacted the authorities, the Florida Commission on Ethics on this.
I have, thank you.
Okay. All right, anybody else, any other council members? This is a unique situation because historically, this road has not always been there. You know, there's a lot of roads that have been out here longer than I have, 35 years. I know when Jim lived there, this road did not go through. He gave keys to certain people to use it, to get them through there, but it was not an open road. You know, so I mean, what are our thoughts? We've got, looks like 5 that aren't renters, that are for it, 2 that are against it, and 3 that we don't know where they stand. I've got 2 comments, public comments. Christine St. John. What's that? Motion. We don't have a motion yet on it. Let's hear from the public. Christine, come up, and then Keith Harris.
Christine St. John, 43rd Road North. First of all, I would like to get a copy of the map that you all are looking at. I've never seen it. Thank you. Can I keep this? And second of all, I'm biting my tongue. I've been advised by my attorney not to say anything, but I'm listening. Thank you.
All right, Keith Harris.
Keith Harris, 2580 C Road. Gas tax revenue, town roads, not town roads. There's something called due process. These property owners along 43rd, as well as most of the roads in this town, are providing the town an egress easement. And the town is taking those roads, claiming they're town roads, and collecting gas tax revenue. They're generating revenue off of your property easements without due process. I had the opportunity in December of 2013 to meet with Braden and Mark on 25th Place at Summer Road that's being claimed as a town road. We looked at the culvert condition. And one of the questions was by a property owner that attended the meeting, do we have to have permission to apply asphalt millings